Hello everyone and welcome back. My name's dustinkreis and it's time for another game discussion. Crimson Shroud for the Nintendo 3DS, part of the Guild 01 series from level 5. It is a very, very interesting game. So much so, I was actually pretty captivated by this game, and I would really like to see them go back and do this type of game up to the 9s and give it a nice physical release. It's a very short game, 8 hours long. It is a sort of a throwback to sort of pen and paper RPGs. It really is reminiscent of a just like a single campaign from a Dungeons and Dragons book, you know. And we'll get into the mechanics of the games and everything here in a minute. But yeah, I'm actually, I really enjoyed Liberation Maiden, but for some reason, Crimson Shroud, I wasn't so keen on it when I first loaded it up. But man, as I played it more and more, I just really kind of fell in love with this quirky little game. $8 on the Nintendo eShop, and you're getting about 8 hours of gameplay. Actually, maybe a little bit more towards maybe 14 hours, because there is a New Game Plus, and you do have to play the New Game Plus to get the full story. When you get to the end of the game, it kind of leaves you on this sort of what the fuck ending, and I guess you have to go back and do certain things that you couldn't do in it the first time to sort of unlock the true ending. So it's kind of a bummer on the one hand, but this is only an 8-hour game. So you can skip the text that you've already read, kind of like, Virtue's Last Reward and things like that. So it's not going to be that much of a slog to get through for the second playthrough. But, yeah, let's go ahead and get into this, talk about it a little bit. The story is told kind of in flashback. It's told in flashback up to a point, and then eventually the story catches up to, where it starts out at. And it tells the story of 3 chasers. These are sort of like mercenaries who are on the hunt for this mysterious item, this mysterious book. And also, this book will unlock the mystery of this thing called the Crimson Shroud. And I don't want to get too much into the story, because this is almost a visual novel in terms of how much text it throws at you. The graphics are very simple, and we'll get to that when we talk about the graphics, but really when you go into this game, think more of a visual novel, and I think you'll put yourself in the right mindset for it. But I really enjoyed the story, very in-depth with its backstory. For just a little RPG, there's a lot of story to be had here, and a lot of things to sort of, think about, and I really enjoy the entire world that they created with this game, and that's the main reason why I would love to see like Crimson Shroud 2 come out as a full 3DS release, and not just part of a compilation, and give it like maybe a 40-hour game or something like that. I think that would just be amazing, and I'd be there day one to pick it up. So yeah, the storyline, it follows these 3 adventurers as they travel through this mysterious palace, searching for this item. And there's some twists and turns, and when you get through the first playthrough, there is some question marks still there to be addressed with with the second playthrough. So a lot of bang for your buck in terms of storyline there. The gameplay, like I said, think of this as a visual novel. Basically, you're reading a bunch of text, the storyline, and then I guess I should also talk about the graphics in conjunction with this, because they kind of go hand in hand. Really, when you're looking at the graphics, you're going to be kind of underwhelmed by them, because it's meant to emulate D&D miniatures, so much so that the characters are actually on bases. And like when you're fighting monsters and you kill a monster, it flips the entire figure over and you see the bottom of the base and it says level 5. So think of like a D&D miniature, and like the little, like Hero Quest or something like that, the little miniature role-playing games that we used to have tabletop. And, because, I mean, this is a digital download, so they can't go all out with the graphics, but I actually found myself really enjoying the graphics. So, for the most part, you're sitting there looking at these static scenes, and the characters, they don't, like, animate. but depending on what's going on in the storyline, their poses will change. I like how I'm doing the poses like you need a visual guide for that. But mainly you're looking at static images of these figures kind of in these little rooms, and every now and then it'll go to like not an animated cutscene, but like a hand-drawn, cartoony cutscene. Not cartoony, but just animated without the animation, we'll put it that way. Still animation, there you go. And so you're looking at these static images, and down on the bottom screen, you're looking at all that on the top screen. On the bottom screen, you have a map of the level of the dungeon you're in, and there's certain rooms that you can travel to. And what you do is you use your stylus to pick the room you want to go to. You go in there, and it's a lot like D&D. You go, well, I'm going to go into this room, and then the dungeon master sort of tells you what's going on in the room. And sometimes you'll find an encounter with enemies. Sometimes you'll find a treasure chest. It really did throw me back to my sort of misspent summers of the past of sitting around a table with my friends and playing D&D. It really brought that out in me. And, sometimes you'll have to roll dice to do a check. There's one really funny scene where, it's between the two characters and they have to figure out who's going to pick this key off this rotting corpse, and neither of them want to do it. So you have to roll dice to make a not pull the key off the dead monster check. And if you fail it, it's kind of funny. Which I failed it, of course. But in combat, mainly combat has done kind of like a standard JRPG. You just pick attack and then your person attacks, or you pick a spell. You can do a combination of three things. You can either attack, use a spell, or use an item, and then you can also use a skill. So you have a choice between those three items as your main mode of attack, and then also you can use a skill on top of that. So it really creates this wonderful battle system where you have to kind of sort of plan out your things. Like you have to attack to build up magic, and as you move through the dungeon, your magic drops. So every time you attack, it restores a little bit. There's also spells and things like that can restore it. There's a meditating ability where you roll dice, and then your dice roll is how much MP you get. So, in the early stages of battle, you have to attack to build up your MP, but then you can start using your skills. So once you get enough MP built up, you can, say, cast a spell that impairs their defense and then attack. Or you can attack and then use a skill that will help the next person when their turn comes up. It really surprised me at how much I was sitting there and thinking about how I wanted to approach these battles, because for the most part the game is pretty easy, but there were a couple battles towards the end where I really had to stay on my toes with the skills I was using, and I kind of realized that my skill loadout was not as good as it should have been, and the magic spells I had were probably not up to par, but I made it through the game nonetheless. But yeah, so like you'll use these skills to lower like abilities on these monsters, and you have to pass dice checks. So on the bottom screen, it'll throw some traditional D&D dice, multi-sided dice, and you can either hold in the A button and flick the circle pad, or you can just use the stylus and sort of shake the screen and then throw the dice, and you get your dice rolls. Kind of, in a way, it's kind of gratuitous, but I really liked it. I really found, that, it really adds something to this game when there's that chance that, you could roll a nat 1 or you could roll a nat 20 and just be like, whoa, get the ability. It really brings back sort of the excitement of tabletop D&D. I already talked about the graphics a little bit. When you look at them, they're going to be underwhelming, but just keep in mind it's a downloadable game, and they're trying to emulate D&D miniatures. This is really supposed to be like a tabletop, pen and paper RPG. The music, I really found the music to be quite awesome, and I don't know if there's a soundtrack, but I would definitely be into getting the soundtrack for this game. Oh, something I forgot about. When you look at the character models, you're going to notice a very sort of similar art style that a lot of RPG players will have noticed if they've played a lot of older games. This comes from the same guy that brought us Final Fantasy XII, Vagrant Story, and I believe Final Fantasy Tactics, because you just look at these characters and the way that they're designed. It looks like they're just right out of Vagrant Story or out of Final Fantasy XII. So has that same sort of art aesthetic to the human characters. But yeah, really surprised by this game, and I really enjoyed it. I wish it was longer. I have the new Game Plus to go through, and I think I'm going to set it up for a little bit, and then I'll go back to it and play the new Game Plus. But I really hope that these little things, that's partly why I'm doing this video, is to kind of, bring out the awareness for these Guild 1 games. I really hope that Crimson Shroud is a success, because I would love to see a full physical release of, even if it had the first game on it, and then you play through the first game, and then you get to the meat and potatoes of the second game. That'd be awesome as well, so people can kind of catch up. But definitely check it out. It's only $8. It's a fun little thing to sort of spend the afternoon with. I completed it in like 7.5 hours, so a couple hours here or there a day. It's going to last you a week. And then there's the new Game Plus, so really a great deal. And Guild 02 is in development right now, and I can't recognize the other 3 names, but Inafune of Mega Man fame is creating a game for it, so that's going to be something to look out for. But yeah, so I guess I'll go ahead and end this now. Tell you guys, seriously, go out and check out Crimson Shroud. Go check out Liberation Maiden too. Level 5 is a great company, and this is kind of a cool little idea that they did, releasing these little downloadable games. When I say that they're downloadable and they're little, it doesn't mean they're really skimping on quality. Both Liberation Maiden and Crimson Shroud are really awesome for what they are, so definitely check them out. So anyway, that is it. So thank you for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.